Hey, well, I hope this is wide enough. There we go, right about here, I think. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. This, of course, is a something my channel has been doing now for the past uh, two, almost 2.5 years now. Somehow, I've managed to do a live video almost every week, having to do with cast iron. Sometimes with cooking with cast iron, sometimes talking about cast iron, and that is really what we are doing here tonight. For those of you, for anybody, the reason why I say this every week is because of the possibility that somebody could be showing up on this channel for the first time. And if so, well, thank you very much for showing up. That really means a lot, especially since a lot of YouTube cooking channels do this every Wednesday. They do a cast iron video, and that's why it's a tradition here for a lot of YouTube cooking channels to call this Cast Iron Wednesday. So thank you very much once again, though, to everybody who shows up, especially the folks who show up here who've been showing up on a weekly basis. I can only thank everybody very much that, you seem to enjoy this well enough to show up here each week, like Jose Latias, for instance, and Cynthia Wesley, and hello, Alma Waslewski, and Caster Fanatic, Wyoming Betty. Betts had a granddaughter last Wednesday. Congratulations on that. And hello, Jan Stewart, Flash 1499, and hello, Val's Black Cats Rules. I understand you also live here in the wonderful state of New York, and pretty much like my town, it seems like all of that snow we had has been all washed away by the weather, by the warm weather we've had for the last few days, which I'm not really complaining about that. I understand we are going to be getting a little bit of snow, like maybe an inch or so over the next couple of days, but well, hey, it could be worse. Of course, we're not even at the halfway point of winter yet. So I should say that I have had a personal winter calendar that begins for me on the 1st November, lasts 5 months, and ends at the end of March, which covers almost all of the snow at least. And based on that calendar, the halfway point of winter happens to hit in the middle of January, i.e., around um, what is it, Martin Luther King Day. And that means we're getting close to the halfway point of winter. So, yeah, that's something. Of course, it also means, well, we've got to get through the worst half of it yet. So far, it hasn't been that bad. We've had some snow and we've had some bitter cold. It hasn't really been too bad, all told, as opposed again to what's been going on in Buffalo. And my condolences to Buffalo. But once again, hello everybody. Yeah, and hello Jan Stewart. I'm in Alaska, and we only have some snow. And Granny and Randy Duffy and Neshus River Catfishing. Did you get that ARC logo on the short? Oh, that one. I did not. The reason why is because that was at an antique mall located not too far from where I live. And yes, it was indeed an Arc Logo Lodge, and it had a $75 price tag on it. And there was still some residual rust on it, too. So, no, that was a little bit rich for my blood, I'm afraid. If I had a great need for an Art Logo Lodge at that price, but however, I don't. If I come across an Art Logo Lodge one of these days at a cut rate price, I'll probably grab it. But at least that made for some good video, so that's something. But nonetheless, here we are again, and as well as mentioned in the title of this video, it looks like it's time for another look at the rack, because I thought it might not be a bad idea to try to make something of a regular schedule for these live videos. Namely, that I know folks like these talks about cast iron, and so I should really do them on a much more regular basis. My hope then, therefore, is how about we do the first week of each month, we can do a discussion of this kind, pretty much. In which case, I am very much looking forward, really, to a Q&A session, not just with myself, although you can ask really about anything that's here. Other folks can ask grandly. Everybody here, as always, is free to ask pretty much questions regarding cast iron for anything you like. Curious about the lid on your wok. How's the fit and where did you get the lid? Okay, well, let's start here. This actually is just an aluminum lid, and I've had this for almost as long as I had that large cast iron wok. It is not iron. It is a pretty, well, I don't know if it's typical because of the flat lid, flat top here. But I actually, there is, or maybe was, an online place called The Wok Shop, which, at least for a while, it's been a while since I've been there, but they were pretty much the place to go if you wanted to buy a wok online. And they also sold wok lids, and that's where I had only recently purchased the large cast iron lid. I'm sorry, the large cast iron wok, and I was really just starting to get into my obsession with cast iron. As a matter of fact, hey, it's January, and that actually means this is the 11, 11th, yeah, 11th anniversary of this large cast iron wok. So that's not a bad way to start. I'll get to the lid in a moment. But yes, in fact, this wok is, aside from being amazingly useful, and I've been cooking with it at least once a week now for the past, wow, 11 years now. Oh, now 12 years, not 11, 12 years. God. Okay, back when I got first was bitten by the cast iron bug in December of 2010. Yeah, it's been, oh man, 12 years. Oh, Happy New Year. Um, the pretty much the first piece that I actually, a piece of cast iron that I bought for on my own was in fact the large cast iron wok. In fact, I had received an Amazon gift card for Christmas that year, and I decided to use it and get the large cast iron wok, and I fell in love with it, and I have still been in love with it. And let's take a look at this one, shall we? Because again, it is the good old large cast iron wok. This thing is 14 inches across. It weighs something like about 10 or 11 pounds. This is an older model now of the cast iron of the large wok, because you see the curved handles here. I mean, it's rectangular, but again, this is from their Pro Logic series, where for several years they designed a series of cast iron pans where everything was angled and round. There was absolutely no sharp corners or angles at all on any of them, and this large wok was one of them. So anyway, as I said, I fell in love with it, and I realized not too long that if you're cooking with a wok, you do need a lid for the wok. And so I decided to get a traditional wok lid. And it was from going online that I learned the proper lid for a wok is supposed to be one that fits inside the wok like this. I mean, it actually does not fit on the rim of the wok. It's supposed to fit on the inside of the wok. So I went to the wok shop and got this lid for it, and I've been using it ever since. Where, as you can see, it's definitely picked up some stains or so over the past 12 years. But that is my lid. It is not from Lodge, I'm afraid. It is actually Asian made, but that is how you put a lid on a wok as well. They finally discontinued that Pro Logic wok only in the last couple of years, and now they're still producing the 14-inch wok at Lodge, but now they now have the standard Lodge handles, and I think we can call them the standard Lodge handles now, because aside from their bakeware series, where they have a different one, they've been putting pretty much the exact same size handle on every single really pan that they've been making. You know, this good old handle that comes from their originally comes from their 10-inch skillet. It's the exact same one now that you will find on the new Lodge wok, and you'll find it on the Lodge cast iron cake pan, and you'll find it on their Sportsman grill, and on pretty much everything now. They're putting a standard on it so that it fits this handle. So that's the newer wok. Um, I'm not. I'm not going to say that my wok is a collector's item now just because it's been discontinued. But hey, I'm not going to stop using it. So anyway, that's the yeah, the walk shop. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Shadow Walker XM. Go online. Well, as I said, it's been 12 years. I'm hoping they're still in business because at least when I went online, they were the place to go online if you wanted to buy yourself a traditional Chinese made wok, the thin woks. And I'd say go ahead and look for it, and you can always see if it's there or not. Randy Duffy, I've got a wok I use, but I don't know what make it is. I also use a Gate Mark Scotch bowl as a wok too. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that either. Um, there's something of an ongoing, I shouldn't say controversy, but Dutch oven users pretty much say, a lot of them say that, well, who needs a wok when you have a Dutch oven? You can do anything in a Dutch oven that you can do in a wok. Well, yes, you can. And that's where, of course, we get into all of the little differences. I mean, after all, the whole point of say a wok versus a skillet versus a chicken fryer versus a Dutch oven, yeah, they all have their own little specialties. And for that reason, I would say, I mean, if you want to do a stir fry in particular, fried rice, chicken stir fries, and pretty much any kind of a good stir fry, yeah, get yourself a wok. A wok is the best thing for doing a stir fry because of the way it's shaped. And I'm sure folks who use a wok know about that because of the shape and because of the sweet spot at the bottom where all the heat is collected. In fact, in my early days of learning how to cook with cast iron, I ended up warping this thing. This actually does not sit flat. It is a spinner. I bought it brand new and I warped it myself on my electric stove. So as a result, if you put it on a flat surface, it does actually wobble. However, with a wok in particular, I don't think that's such a bad thing because you know what a warp cast iron does? It actually means you've got a hot spot right in the center where the warping is. And with a wok in particular, that's not a bad thing. So, besides, it'll fit just fine on the burner of my stovetop. I can't use it on a glass stovetop in that manner, but I mean, hey, I've got my gas stove now, so that's just it. If you want to do a stir fry in particular, I would definitely, and if you do a lot of stir fries, I mean, you really just have a use for it. But as I said, I have been using this wok almost nonstop here for the past 12 years, and I very much enjoy it. So yeah, I could use my number 12 Wagner skillet as a wok. It spins like a top. Yeah, that's the thing. That is the thing, really. Just about all of the large vintage cast iron pans, like it or not, most of them that we've found do seem to unfortunately be warped in the center. And the larger ones in particular seem to have a tendency of being spinners like that. I've shown you good old Stumpy here, my number 14 Birmingham Stove and Range, and he is definitely a spinner. Let me see, I believe even, oh yeah, definitely my BSR number 12 Dutch oven. That is also a spinner. It spins pretty nicely. It's even though it's not supposed to spin. So, fortunately, well, that's just it. You can cook just fine with a warped cast iron pan. If you have very delicate cooking, especially like say eggs, for instance, that may make it a little difficult because again, that means you've got a hot spot in the pan. So you could either use another pan or do your best to compensate for it. My Wagner chicken fryer spins really good and I love it, says Pastoramo. And likewise, Paul Carey, great place for learning. Well, I certainly hope so. I wouldn't rub noses in it. I want to cook in it. So, yeah. I still haven't seasoned Handsome Stone. I still haven't seasoned my 14 Lodge. My 14 Lodge is a spinner. My 8 BSNR will warp while cooking and flatten while cool. I've seen that happen. Um, I am not enough of a metallurgist I guess, to explain that property. And my guess would have to be that it may have just literally hit the point where it's beginning to warp, perhaps. If you've got it so, I mean, if you've been cooking with it long enough that it's developed a permanent warp, well, then that's how it is. Um, all I can say with that, I guess, is just be careful while cooking so that it doesn't end up being permanently warped, I guess. If you collect, you're gonna get a spinner. Oh, there's no denying that. Do you have a cast iron oval roaster? Yeah, Papa Dan. How many? At this point, I have three, as it turned out. One, in fact, is the ugh, well, let's do this one. We've got the BSR Birmingham Stove and Range. This is the Red Mountains series fish fryer. This, of course, is from their earlier Red Mountain days, and you can tell because of the angular handle. And mine, in fact, this one is a Sportsman. You know how some of them have the Sportsman logo on the underneath the handle. This one does. I'm hoping I can get it shown to show right in the light, but it definitely has the Sportsman logo underneath the handle here. So, and this thing, quite frankly, is also wonderful. If you get one of these, if you end up getting one of these, you may end up never, it may never leave the stovetop. This is extremely useful because you know what this is? This is a really long cast iron skillet. I mean, it's shaped like a skillet. It's got it's actually very angular on the inside, and it's got nice high walls like a skillet, and it's big enough to fit over two burners. So especially if you have a family and you want to cook a lot of food for them at once, like say actually, I need to put this down here. Like, for instance, cooking a lot of bacon and eggs for breakfast in the morning, a pan like that will work wonders. So, that is definitely really a good one to get. And then on the other hand, moving right along, oh boy, ugh, I am going to wear myself out tonight, I think. Speaking of oval roasters, here is the Lodge. Yeah, this is the Lodge Deep Fish Fryer, which they made in the early '90s as part of their wildlife series. Well, apparently it wasn't actually part of the wildlife series, but they did put the same wildlife logo on it they have on their Dutch pans. Ugh. And this, of course, yeah, you can see him groaning already. This, of course, has the oval lid, which on the other side, there were several models of this. This particular one happens to have a grill pan on the bottom here, and then we get into the Lodge Deep Fish Fryer. This originally came from Birmingham Stove and Range, and when BSR went out of business, Lodge started producing it themselves until they discontinued it, that is. So, yeah, if you're asking about an oval roaster, we definitely, yeah, I mean, as you probably know already, that yes, we certainly have some. And yes, these things are all massively useful because, as it says, it is a deep fish fryer, which means, of course, just that you can do a lot of deep frying in it, and I've done a fair amount of deep frying in this thing. On the other hand, um, yeah, on the other hand, I haven't even shown the BSR, the Red Mountain oval roaster that I was lucky enough to come across. Is this thing on solid? Hold on 1 second. Adjust this. There we go. Now we got it. Let's put these back so that I don't trip over them. Best to have a little bit of OCD here. There we go. So yes, and so okay. Hello, first time response, Johnny Waring. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for showing up. So yeah, congratulations on the BSR 3060. Yeah, that was a nice score, and it was one that actually managed to score off of eBay, amazingly enough, because I lucked into a good deal on that one, as as the person selling that was trying to pass it off as a Griswold. And so when I explained to him that it actually came from Lodge, well, he did in fact allow me to purchase it at a big discount from his original price. So all told, I think it wasn't so bad. So there's a lot of passion in your cast iron. Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, I've put enough effort into this collection and into this hobby, and I've done my best to enjoy it as well. Praise Bob, Edward Huff. Praise, give me slack or give me food or kill me. Well, fortunately, thanks to this, definitely I have the opportunity not just to give me food, but to give other people food. So, and that's one reason why I really need to, unfortunately, lose some weight now. But that's again another. Well, a lot of people say that around this time of year. So, lodge, of course, yes, and Jose Latios, and I love my lodge. It seems like a lot of my collection is modern day lodge. I do have some vintage lodge, but not that much in the way of vintage lodge, with some exceptions like that deep fish fryer, for instance. I guess it's partly because my a lot of my vintage pieces are actually BSR, as you know, Birmingham Stove and Range. So I've got a fair amount of vintage BSR as opposed to a fair amount of modern day lodge. In fact, as soon as I can afford it, I'm not done with this rack yet because we've got all of this space up here. What I hope to do, well, let me try it over here. What I hope to do is put some kind of a hanging rack or something so that I can actually hang up the rest of these skillets here. So I'm the best I can say is I am still working on it. Still have fruitcake, still have fruitcake. I mean, that is a heavy fruitcake. And I live by myself, so I don't know when I'll ever be able to polish that whole thing off. Love another video of vintage cast iron. Well, as a matter of fact, I am working on one right at this moment, and I had kind of hoped to have it done by now, but unfortunately, a couple of things came up, one of which was my getting sick over the last few days. That's one reason why my video output has kind of slowed. I've been doing these cast ironitis shorts, but I really need to be able to delve down and get this video finished. So yes, there is going to be one coming out in the next few days. That is once I get back from a trip to Massachusetts in the next couple of days. As I said, I've got some serious business I have to take care of there, unfortunately. Feeling better tonight. Well, as a matter of fact, I am still after Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, after 5 days, I'm still kind of stuffed in the head. And this is really what I've been all this time. In that I've got, as I said, my ears are definitely sort of stuffed up. I've got congestion. I've got post nasal drip, which I won't go into detail. And yet, I really don't have anything much more than that. I mean, as some folks may know, I even went and got a COVID test on Monday to make sure that I had not contracted that. And that test fortunately came out negative. So there's something for that. So my guess is this is probably like a nasal infection, and those things can be a real pain in the butt because that means it could very well be at least a couple of weeks or so before I finally manage to work my way through this. But that's how it goes. I mean, every time I've had one of these things, I've gone to the doctor or the urgent care clinic, paid $100, and they basically give me a prescription of something like amoxicillin. You know, that stuff that I think it costs you all of maybe 75 cents at the drugstore for that prescription. But it does its job. So, but rather than spend $100 again, especially since I'm not in that bad of a condition. I'm being cheap, and it looks like I'm kind of working it out. Those sinus infections are a real pain. Yeah, tell me about it. Corey. I'm registering. You get a BSR. Oh, wow, that's nice, Cynthia. Pay to pal. Hope you bought your fallout shelter sign when you moved. As a matter of fact, yes, it's hanging up in my kitchen right now. In fact, it is next to my stove. It's hanging up by the stove and by my back exit to the deck. So it is there. I've been in this place now. Good grief! Some August. I started August 20th, so let's say September, October, November, December, 4 months, going on 4.5 months. And there's while my big stuff is essentially unpacked, I really haven't done much in the way of hanging things up yet. So I've definitely been taking my time. I mean, granted, it's not like I'm in any rush. So maybe, hopefully, by springtime or so, I'll have some other stuff hung up in my kitchen. um, what can I say? That's partly because pretty much well, again, I work a full time job. And other than that, well, I've got my other hobby, which of course has been cooking and making these videos, which, as I said, I am going to get back to doing more of that after this weekend. So I will reassure you of that. What is your heaviest piece of cast iron, and how many reps can you do? I'm not sure what you mean by reps. If you're talking about exercise, I can probably say zero, whatever it is. However, my heaviest piece of cast iron, oh, that's easy. That is the 15-gallon cauldron, which I've shown in a few videos and taken out a few times. That and here it is right here. This monster weighs 75 pounds by itself. So whenever I take this thing out, it is a real struggle by myself to get it into the car and lug it to wherever it is that I need to get it. But yeah, this thing here is a real monster, and I've told that story as well. That one actually comes from Philadelphia. It is likely from the no, it's definitely from the 1800s. For the last few years, I had assumed it was based on the law of averages and the life of the Savory Company of Philadelphia. I had assumed it was from the early 1800s. We're talking like maybe the 1820s or so. Somebody not too long ago pointed out that based on the design, it's more likely probably later, like maybe 1850s to 1860s or so, which is still fine. I don't have any complaints at all about that, and I certainly hope to have that for the rest of my life. So, yeah, that cauldron. Well, like I said, how did you clean the inside of the cauldron? I presume you mean. Well, I ended up doing it. I That's one reason why I got myself a huge barrel, one that could actually fit this thing and use as a lye tank. That was fun in itself, and right now that barrel is out in my garage. Well, actually, it's another barrel, my original barrel that I used for this. I had an incident last year where it was kind of stolen. Yeah, I know, a big plastic barrel. But anyway, the type of barrel that I used as my lye tank, and I'm using as my lye tank now, and I really love it too. How can you describe it? If you've even been to a construction site, you know what kind of trash barrel this is. We're not talking about your typical hefty trash barrel, which makes a good live tank in itself. This is the one that is shorter, wider, and it's green, almost neon green. And that is actually wide enough to fit this thing. So because of that, I was actually able to completely give a lye bath to this. I believe I had it in the lye bath for a good couple of months or so before and then after that, well, then I had to do it the hard way. I pretty much spent an afternoon scrubbing it down inside and out. And then I put it over my propane. Yeah, I've got a gas. I do have a gas burner for this. That's what I use actually to heat this up. Gas burner with a propane tank. And so I placed it on top of the propane tank and heated it up, and that's how I season the inside of it. So that was a little project in itself. And essentially, yeah, I've made gumbo in that huge cauldron, yes, and several times I made jambalaya in this huge cauldron. And it's true, I have to keep on looking for excuses to use this cauldron because, of course, you need to have a very special event to use it. Number one, because it's so much effort to actually hoist this thing around and set it up, and number two, it's expensive to fill up this pot. I mean, to do a jambalaya in this pot, I'm talking about, I've got to get like about 20 to 30 pounds of meat We're talking chicken, sausage, which of course you've got to have at least some andouille, and it's chicken sausage, and we've got like 12 pounds of rice, and all of those, and of course uh, the onions and peppers and celery for the Trinity. So yeah, it costs a lot to fill up that pot, which is why it's got to be a special occasion. There have been some special occasions that I've used this, some good and some, well, I guess I made a jambalaya, in fact, for my dad's funeral service or memorial service, I guess you could say. So, far and away, ivermectin. Far and away, my favorite winter tonic is echinacea. Okay, Dr. Christopher Israel, you do not need to pulse E. I guess to pull. Okay, well, I'll have to look all of that up. I mean, I am no, I'm. I mean, I am really not much at, unfortunately, those kind of natural treatments. My 99% of my treatment consists of Advil cold and sinus, which, as you know, is a combination of Sudafed and ibuprofen, and it does a pretty good job too, keeping me in good shape. So I like that. The lid is a okay. Break it out for the cast iron private party at your place. Yeah, not a bad idea. The lid is a 3092. Yes, they did have different model numbers for those for their pans, and that's true. The deep fryer that they made at BSR and Lodge kept the part number too was 3060. The lid was model number of 3092. And the shallow fish fryer, I believe, had a model number, I think it was a 3093. I don't have my references in front of me and I don't have them memorized, I'm afraid. I'm sure if anybody wants to correct me, please do. Extra vitamin C helps. I've got a head cold too, and taking extra C, it helps. I remember my grandma washing cloths in one that large. Yeah, that's true. As I've been doing casual research into the history of cast iron for things like this, I mean, you may remember about a year ago, I actually did a video on cast iron cauldrons, and that's when I realized something obvious about history. The reason why they stopped making these huge pots here in the United States is because they became obsolete. I mean, consider the two biggest uses for a huge cast iron pot like this was number one, cooking, and number two, washing. In fact, you probably even use this as a wash pot more than you would use this as a cauldron, a cooking cauldron, simply because the thing is so damn big. I mean, really, it's like cooking in something this size every night for just your typical family. That's probably not very likely. So, more likely, I would think most of these were probably used as wash pots, where you actually boiled your clothes and then you wrung them out and hung them up to dry and everything like that. And then, of course, as well, the Industrial Revolution came along and things changed. So two things came along that pretty much made these big pots obsolete here in the United States. One, of course, were cooking stoves, because you don't need a huge pot like this when you have a cooking stove in your kitchen. And number two would be electric washing machines, because, well, just that. If you have a washing machine in your home, you don't need one of these big, huge pots. And so as a result, American manufacturers simply stopped making these things because they were obsolete. And yeah, I know. Yeah, but what about gumbo and jambalaya? Yes, they're certainly true. However, for those manufacturers, there simply wasn't enough business in the long run for them to afford to continue producing these huge pots, and that's why they became, like I said, that's why they became obsolete here in the U.S. And that is why that if you want to get a brand new one of these huge pots, yes, you do have to go for the Asian manufacturers. From and regardless of the politics of Asian cast iron, I've said this many times and I'll keep saying it. Asian cast iron is safe for cooking. If you have political reasons to stay away from Asian cast iron, go for it. That's your business, not mine. But even if you don't like Asian cast iron, it's still safe for cooking. So, That means if you wanted to get yourself a brand new, big, huge jambalaya pot, you'd have to go for an Asian importer like Bayou Classic or Cajun Cookers, and both of which are actually good brands for those things. I mean, people like those. People like those brands simply because they're so big. And in fact, I've got one of my other pots, probably my second biggest pot. I think my second biggest pot, in fact, yeah, is my Bayou Classic 4-gallon Dutch oven. Rather than lug this whole thing out, I think I'll just bring out the lid here. Ugh, excuse me. Sorry for the butt shot, folks. Ugh. Oh, yeah, yeah, clang, clang. But here we are. Here is the lid for the Bayou Classic. It's a 4-gallon, 16-quart Dutch oven. Essentially, it is the same shape as a modern day Dutch oven that you might see from Lodge or Camp Chef. It's just bigger. I think this thing is like about maybe 15 inches across or so. And it has the Bayou Classic logo. And I got this, in fact, in the summer of 2012 when I had the need to get a big, huge pot like that because I didn't have my big cauldron yet. Since then, I can't say I'm disappointed. I love this thing, but I'm still a little upset that this does not have the alligator logo. Anybody who knows Bayou Classic knows they've got this cute alligator logo on their lids, and mine doesn't. In fact, a couple of years ago, I actually called up Bayou Classic. Excuse me, let me put this back. Ugh, clang, clang. I called up Bayou Classic and asked them if they actually sell separate lids for their pots because I was really thinking of getting one with the alligator logo. And they said no, they don't supply individual lids for their pots. So I was bummed out, which means that's what I have now, which I still use because it still makes a huge amount of jambalaya. And in fact, I used that thing just this past Halloween, just a couple of months ago. I made jambalaya in that 4-gallon pot because it's less expensive to fill up that 4-gallon pot as opposed to this 15-gallon pot. Do you call that room the cast iron room? I have not yet called it that. This is essentially my living room here. And I put this rack here because, well, it had the most room for me to spread it out. Folks may remember up until last year, this used to be one huge 6-tier rack that was that extended up to like about here or so, and all my cast iron was condensed into one place. And it was pointed out many times, that may very well damage the floor like that. Back then, I didn't care too much because I was in a rented apartment, and quite frankly, a crappy rented apartment in the middle of the hood, too. So, however, I've since moved into my own home where obviously I am paying a lot more attention to details like that, trying to keep that kind of problem from occurring. And so as a result, I split the rack and spread it out. In fact, I actually have more room on these racks to expand and fill it up with more cast iron. I'm doing my best not to do that. I've said many times, I don't want to be a hoarder, he said as he's got all this stuff. Well, that's my problem. um, yeah, the stuff in the window might get a tan. Ivermectin. I like my Victoria cast iron skillet made in Colombia. The price was right, and it is not as heavy as standard larger Chinese skillet. Brilliant pour spouts and handles. I've heard about those, and I think it's you who has mentioned Victoria cast iron a few times already. So yeah, I mean, if I ever have the chance to acquire a Victoria skillet, well, maybe. It's not as if I don't have enough skillets. I do actually have a Victoria tortilla press. So, yes, I actually do have something from Victoria. Did you see the Christmas fight at Waffle House that defended herself with a large 6-inch cast iron that they use for eggs and stuff? Is this real or is this another one of those urban legends? I mean, not that I doubt you, but there's this urban legend that's been going around pretty much forever about the housewife who beats off the intruder with the cast iron skillet. Unfortunately, most versions of that urban legend have something of a racist aspect to it, which I will not get into, which comes back again to Waffle House. Is there actually a video of it? If so, I'd love to see it. And yeah, because I'm sure it's actually pretty amusing here. Because yeah, even a good old number three size 6-inch skillet, this thing is still, hey, it's made of cast iron. And by the way, this is a 6-inch skillet too. So if she defended herself with a 6-inch skillet, it can be done because, like I said, this thing is pretty heavy and you could definitely do some damage with this thing. But if she used a larger skillet, well, it was not a 6-inch. And since I'm holding it up, by the way, yeah, this one happens to be a Griswold. So I have a made in Mexico skillet. Looks like a bad remake of a number 7 3-notch Lodge. Lots of casting flaws, but I love it. You may be right, actually. Meaning no offense, but it is true that recasts, of course, have been around since the earliest days. And there were a lot more of them in the earlier days than there are now. Now it's easier, of course, for most manufacturers to simply contract with China. So if it's actually made in Mexico, then again, congratulations. Like this one, for instance. Here's a Kamal that I managed to score for $5 at a flea market a couple of years ago, and it says "Made in Mexico," and it's a Kamal, and it says, well, the initials say "Taste," and I don't know what the initials stand for. I tried looking this thing up and I did not see any record of a manufacturer, so I don't know anything about this other than I suspect it's fairly modern, largely because of the cursive writing and the font on this. Uh, Vintage cast iron in general did not have fancy logos like this. I think the only exception to that, of course, was Griswold and Wagner. So for something like this, I would still suspect this is probably actually modern. Not that I mind it, it makes a nice little griddle. If I minded it, I wouldn't keep it. If I had a small bedroom dedicated strictly for my irons, well, there's another reason why I have this stuff down here. This is on the first floor for that same reason. If her can of barkeepers gets as hard as mine, then I can understand why they ran. Yeah, barkeeper's friend. I love barkeeper's friend, but of course, it can tend to harden up if it ends up getting liquid in it. In which case, of course, you whack it. Kind of like Womp biscuits. You want to whack it on the side a couple of times before you can actually use it. Victoria is coming out with a new high-end line of skillet that are bead blasted and pricey. Reach out to them and see if they might be interested in sending you one for review. Well, it's a possibility. So, bead blasted, huh? Gee, that means they're actually following Lodge's business model. That's interesting. Gee, I thought large skillets were terrible because they don't smooth them out anymore like they used to. I mean, like the field skillets or like the Griswolds. I hate cooking in modern day cast iron because it's so rough. And yet, you say that Victoria is doing the same thing. And yet, if you look on some place like Amazon, if there are a lot of inexpensive cast iron skillets on Amazon, all competing with Lodge. And funny how all of those cast iron skillets seem to look exactly like Lodge skillets and Lodge Dutch ovens. Gee, if Lodge is so terrible, it's funny how all the competitors are trying to copy them. And that's all I'll say about that. Victoria is made in Colombia, so yes, she got a chair tossed at her. Well, I guess I'll have to look at that. Do you have any waffle irons? No, I do not. I have to admit, I'm starting to get the urge to look into getting a waffle iron. Because, well, hey, I've got my gas stove now. I mean, up until now, I was using nothing more than an electric stove top. And and especially from the way those things are shaped, you really can't use a waffle iron on an electric stove top. But I'm cooking with gas now. So, yeah, I'm starting to get the urge. In fact, as I mentioned the other day when I was at that antique store, for the record, folks in New York probably know about it. It's the early Owego Antique Center. It's one of the biggest antique malls I think in the area, and it's one of the best too. I've actually found some good stuff there. There is a vendor in that place, as I'm sure somebody knows, that actually has a really nice, huge collection of cast iron for sale, mostly at very high prices. Yeah, well, they could be higher prices. Actually, as far as antique vendors go, and especially when compared to eBay, it's not bad. It's something that I go there to look at, and I think maybe once I actually bought from them. I mean, what can I say? I've got this collection. I am at the point where if I'm going to shell out another $100 for a skillet or something, it's got to be something that I really, really want. And yet, I'm starting to get the urge to look into maybe looking for a waffle iron. I'll never learn. Do you have any griddles? As a matter of fact, the only griddle I have is that Kamal that I showed you. Largely because what can I say? I've got all of these skillets, and what's more, I have big skillets here, like good old Stumpy, my number 14, for instance. He's big enough that I could just as easily do anything with old Stumpy that I could do with a griddle. So it's a matter of taste, I guess, more than anything else. Actually, if you want to say about griddles, well, there is this one. Ugh, I acquired this last year. Here is a gate mark griddle. In fact, as you can see, here are the gate marks on the back. But technically, it's not really a griddle. It's a sad iron heater. But it makes just fine griddle for anybody who uses these things, and I know a lot of people do use these things. It is, of course, gate marked, and it's from the 18th century, 19th century. Hold on, there's something there like that. Okay. Though, of course, come on, show what is going on now. There we go. Though, of course, the main reason why I got this, well, one, it was cheap, but also I was trying to find a lid to fit my BSR Red Mountain fish fryer, which does not have a lid. This one did not quite fit. It's about a fraction of an inch too small, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I have griddles. Though eventually I am going to end up donating this one because, well, as I said, I really don't have much of a use for it for the same reason. Right now, ugh, it's sitting away on my give it away pile. Remember, that's the one I posted a short about a week or so ago. If you've got yourself a pile of cast iron to just give away, you might have cast ironitis. Ivermectin, nothing wrong with Lodge. Oh yeah, no, I'm not arguing with you about this either. Obviously they're business competitors, but I don't consider it to be anything personal, and I don't consider it to be any kind of a personal rivalry. I have no reason. I see no reason really to get emotional over things like that. Over say Lodge versus BSR versus vintage versus modern versus Field versus Stargazer versus Griswold versus Wagner. It's a matter of taste, and they all have their advantages and some disadvantages as well. I mean, I have several Griswolds in my collection that I'm proud of. For instance, I have several Wagners. I have one Stargazer. And of course, I've got all this modern Lodge, all of which I do my best to try to rotate through. I had trouble. So, and what can I say? I enjoy them all. I mean, I made the effort to acquire these things, and I've kept them long enough. So, okay. Ruffalo, a brilliant idea. And okay. I was recently tempted by two Chicago Hardware Foundry skillets, a number 5 and a number 3, but ended up getting a single notch number 10 lot. Wow, that's actually nice. A single notch number 10. You got yourself a nice rare piece there. And yeah, I know. It's like I can understand that a number 3 and a number 5 CHF or Chicago Hardware Foundry, yeah, they would be nice. I mean, if I came across a number 3 Chicago Hardware Foundry, I would at a good price, I'd probably pick it up. Number 3 skillets, it seems like, are something like crack for cast iron collectors because they're so small and so convenient. They're like chips. Nobody can have just one. I've got how many do I have now? 15 number 3s. Yeah, if you've got more than 3 number 3 skillets, you might have cast ironitis. So, yeah, anyway, if nothing else, I mean, again, it's because I posted that video the other day, and not only do I have all of these number 3 skillets, I'm trying my best to make them all different too, for an interesting variety there. Like Pokemon cards. But it's not. But hey, that I would think is not too bad. As long as I don't have number 3s stacked up all the way to the ceiling, then I really don't see too much of a problem with that. After all, they don't cost, or they haven't cost, a lot of money. They don't take up a lot of space, and you can do a lot of things with them, like making individual pot pies, for instance. Number 3s and number 5s, I have plenty. Yes, exactly. Mike, no, Mike, Jeff Rogers, early on, he had the idea, and which something that I'd like to do on a regular basis too. He actually uses his number 5s as dinner plates, in that he actually serves dinner to his family and his guests in number 5 skillets. Why not? I don't think that's a bad idea. I belong to a club that has a number 8 Chicago hardware chicken fryer. Oh, congratulations on that. Yeah. Dave Evely or Evely, 20 number 3s. Yes, exactly. Stop me before I 3 again. Uh, is hammered iron hard to find in your areas? They're very scarce around me. Seen 2 lids in the last 4 years. Yeah, hammered iron is pretty rare in general, I think. Probably because I don't think it was actually produced for very long. Um, I think, and I may be wrong because I don't have know of any documentation that verifies this, but my opinion is hammered cast iron comes from the Art Deco movement. We're talking like maybe the 20s and 30s. That seems to be when just about all of the hammered pieces I've seen date to, including hammered Wagner and even hammered Lodge. They all seem to be around that time, and that's why I think it was an artistic thing. Like I said, the Art Deco movement, and it was nice. I mean, hammered pans are nice, very attractive pieces. So I mean, I don't blame them at all for that. But that would also be a reason why they're so rare to hard to find, because they were only produced during that particular period of history, as opposed to all the rest of the history of cast iron. And then, of course, we get into the ugly hammered pans. I had 3. I had a set of 3 ugly hammered pans, a 3, a 5, and an 8. And I gave them all away on this channel about a year ago, in fact, in a giveaway contest. And I really don't regret it. The reason why I gave them away was because I've got all of this stuff here. I mean, I could afford to give it away. It's not like my life would end without a set of ugly hammered pans, but they are good pans. They are, of course, anybody who uses those ugly hammered pans, you know what I'm talking about. They're thick and they're heavy, and a lot of them are still flat and not spinners. I have actually seen out in the wild maybe a couple of those hammered pans that are spinners, but those ugly hammered pans are thick, and I think that makes them harder to warp. So they are really great for cooking for that reason because they've got nice smooth insides. Anybody who uses an ugly hammer, I'm sure you will not regret it. Cynthia Wesley, Papa, back before Thanksgiving, I found a dead flat number 7 one notch lodge. Well, congratulations. I hope it was not an affordable price. I think that's the best I could say there. So yeah. Oh, I know the guy who won the. Oh yeah, Jose Latios. Yeah, gee, I wonder who that was. Well, I hope you. I hope he got a lot of use out of those hammered pans. But even if he sold them, well, that's his business. I mean, after all, it was a giveaway. It's his to do what he wants with it. Debbie, I got a hammered CHF lid, but never seen its bottom. Been looking for quite a while. Hammered aluminum Dutch ovens I see a couple of times a year. No, sir, did not sell them. Well, then, as I said, I hope you got some use out of them. But yes, so those hammered skillets again, they are very nice collector's pieces, and like any other piece of cast iron, they're good users. If you have one, definitely get some use out of it in one way or another. So, oh, they're my pride and joy, he says. Oh, well, I'm glad you like them. So, hey, going up here. The person who sold it couldn't tell what it was. It was so cruddy. I paid $3. Oh yeah, that's the thing. And here's why. This is one of the things I love about this hobby, and I'm sure a number of people here have probably made a good score in one way or another. Oh, what's up with you, Trouble? Okay, good. You're not climbing the curtains this time. Is something going on, Trouble? Give me one quick second here. Something going on? I don't see anything. But he's definitely stalking something. He is looking outside very intently. All right, I'll pick him up at some other time. But what was I saying? Oh yes, that's right. Nice thing about this, one of the nice things about this hobby, besides the cooking and the great food, of course, is that if you have yourself just a little bit of knowledge, you don't have to be an expert. If you have yourself just a little bit of knowledge, you've got a great advantage, and there's a good chance that you will be able to find yourself a good score, even knowing just a little bit. Even if you know, for instance, how to clean up rusty, cruddy cast iron. Lo and behold, like Cynthia says, you've got your the seller couldn't even tell what it was because it was so cruddy. Got a dirt cheap price for it, and bam, turned out to be hidden treasure. I've been fortunate enough to clean up a couple of really nasty crusted skillets, and they turned out to be real treasures like that. One of them was my grandmother's pan, that diamond eight favorite, possible favorite that I've shown off a couple of times. For instance, my dad actually brought that one to me, and yeah, something's going on because Trouble is really he is trying. Boy, he is definitely looking to get outside here. I mean, whatever's going on out there, and I don't see any lights or anything. Maybe there's a cat or maybe even a raccoon out there. But what was I saying? Oh yes. Yeah, my dad actually uh, brought me two of my grandmother's skillets, both of which had incredible thick coatings of crud and seasoning and buildup on them. You've seen those, the kind that is like you can't even tell what they are. And he asked if I could clean them up, and I said no problem. And it was no problem to clean them up. In fact. One of them turned out to be that favorite, possible favorite. I keep saying that possible favorite Diamond 8 skillet, which I still have and I'm glad to have now. The other turned out to be a typical 6-inch made in Taiwan imitation unmarked Wagner skillet. I did end up either giving or selling that. I forget which because, well, I mean, yes, I know it was my grandmother's pan, but I mean, no one was ever going to use it again. I have all of these other cast iron pans here, and that number 8 diamond is a great heirloom that I have no intention of taking out of the family. I've actually tried donating that one to my brother, and he didn't want it. So, as a result, I am keeping it until the opportunity arises. Okay, buenas noches, Jose. Yes, good night, Jose, and I hope you're feeling better too. Got a mini ham boiler, 6B. Oh yeah. What cast iron foundry do you have the most? Probably a toss up between Lodge and BSR. Um, I fell in love with BSR early on in this hobby, and I'm donated no I've donated a lot of effort, I guess I could say, to learning about BSR and making that information available, like say on my website, for instance. And it's a fascinating history as well. um, but because of that, I've had a real love for BSR pans. Number one, they're great cookers. What can you say? Anybody who has a BSR, you know that one of your most valuable and trusted and most used pans in your kitchen is almost certainly going to be a BSR. I mean, besides old Stumpy here, I have shown off, for instance, I don't know how many times I've shown off my Red Mountain number 8, for instance, a pan that I'm very proud of because it's nice and smooth on the outside, nice and smooth on the inside. So yeah, this is pretty much the cast iron skillet to have in anybody's kitchen. And since then, though, of course, again, I learned a lot about the history of BSR, and I found it to be very interesting. And as a result, I've ended up collecting a fair amount of BSR, old and new, ranging back from their early days all the way to the days just before they went out of business. And on the other hand, as I said, I have a lot of modern day Lodge. I have a few vintage Lodge pieces, but I have a lot, a lot of modern day Lodge. I mean, yeah, cooking with Bobby Joe on this. She's been kind enough to be a regular here on this channel as well. Last week, in fact, she had a giveaway where she gave away a 25th anniversary National Cornbread Festival skillet. And congratulations to her for doing that. On the other hand, here is a modern day Lodge 20th anniversary National Cornbread Festival. So I picked that up at the 20th National Cornbread Festival. This was in 2016. Wow, it's been 7 years already. Oh, I've got to get back there. Oh man, it's been almost 5 years since I've been there. Boy, I miss that. Hopefully my opportunity will come back to get there this year. So, and yeah, and here's another modern day lodge that I'm proud to own, their 120th anniversary skillet. Now, of course, again, they're at 125 years. So yeah, these are nice pieces, and they're definitely going to be heirlooms, and I have no intention of selling them, at least not at this time. So and heard the shout out BSR. My lodge workhorses. Yes, exactly. BSR and my lodge, they're workhorses. Won't trade for the world. Yeah, exactly. Everyday pans, and everyday pans are the ones that get the most use and the most love. I mean, if you're lucky enough to own something like a Blacklock or a Finex or a Stargazer cast iron skillet, I mean, I hope that is become your everyday pan because it's a really, really great pan. But Lodge, I mean, what can you say about Lodge? They're cheap. You could call them disposable, but they are workhorses and they will probably last you for the rest of your life. And unfortunately, Lodge knows how to cater to the collector's market, which is why here I go again. Oh, God. Ugh, this is a stack of number 8s, all of which are from their Cracker Barrel series. You know the one, the American Heritage series. Ugh. Ugh. So, yeah, those are the pans I want to hang up if I ever have the chance to actually put a more of a hanging rack in the back of this. So, but yeah, that right there, I think, is proof of cast iron itis more than anything else. I've got just this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 identical Lodge 10-inch pans. Do I really need 7 identical Lodge 10-inch pans? Well, like I said, they're all part of the American Heritage series, and they all have different logos on the bottom. Wow, isn't that amazing? He's got different pictures on the bottom of the pans. Yeah, definitely you need 7 of them. Oh, man. Okay, at least one or two of them I do in fact intend on giving away at some point or another, because a couple of them are in fact duplicates, and I did get them especially for that reason. Because the Cracker Barrel series, it sells out every year. More power to them for doing that. And because of that, these can become somewhat rare items. So I actually do, for instance, I can't call myself lucky, but I actually did end up getting two of the Walking Liberty half-dollar skillets last year, for instance. One of them is mine, and it's mine. You can't have it, precious, precious. But one of them I am going to keep. The other one I am eventually going to end up, eventually, eventually going to end up getting rid of it in some form or another when the opportunity arises. I don't know. Maybe have a giveaway, or maybe an opportunity will come up to give it as a gift or something. The Walking Liberty skillet has a bit of personal value to me as well, largely because it dates back to my early days. We're talking like the late 1970s, where one of my very first hobbies got into coin collecting in the late 1970s. And at this time, this was because mom and dad had gotten into coin collecting. And so, of course, when they got into a hobby, we all got into a hobby, and it lasted for a few years. But it was something special. And mom's favorite coin to have and collect in those days was the Walking Liberty half-dollar. And so, and because of that, really more than anything else, when the Walking Liberty skillet came out last year, it reminded me of mom. So besides the fact that it's a beautiful design on the bottom of that, but yeah, I had to get one especially for that reason. So then there's my story there. Numismatist spelling, yes, numismatist. Yeah, no, I do remember that. Yeah, as I said, it was one of my first hobbies. I mean, I'm talking like when I was going on maybe about 10 years old, for instance. And that was when when I had no money, pretty much, being a 10-year-old kid. And so most of my collection, of course, were pennies and nickels, plus stuff that occasionally my parents would give me as gifts. So, but even though it's been almost that long since I've collected coins, I still remember it, and I still have fond memories of those days. And it's things like I'm thinking, I would love to see Lodge do a series of vintage coin skillets, not just the Walking Liberty half, but like say the 1933 Double Eagle. If anybody knows their vintage coins, you know the 1933 Double Eagle. You know the 1804 dollar, the 1804 silver dollar. Wouldn't it be great to have a Lodge cast iron pan with the emblem of the 1804 dollar on it? So yeah, I actually mentioned that in passing on a Lodge message board once. I don't think anything ever came of it, unfortunately, but it's yet another thing that I would love to see Lodge get into. Love to see them do. So the 1923 peace dollar. Yes, exactly. What cast iron foundry do you feel cooks the best? All of them. There's really no other way to say that, because any time at all, and I've done it myself, any time at all, you see those videos where they try to pit one found cast iron maker against another, whether it's Field versus Stargazer. I did one, in fact, of Stargazer versus BSR, and people have even compared Lodge to Finex, which they now own, or compare Lodge to Field or Butter Pet. Usually, what they all end up saying is the same thing: is that, oh, the Lodge has this rougher surface. See, well, on the other hand, the Field's got this nice polished, smooth, and yet in the end, the Lodge did a great job cooking here. Yeah, there really isn't that much difference between that and the Field, and that and the Finex, and or the Stargazer and the BSR. pretty much they're all outstanding cookers in the kitchen. And that's yet another reason to love cast iron in general, I think. What are you doing now, Trouble? Um, so I really can't say I have a favorite. I mean, the reason why I get this preference for BSR, I think, besides being fantastic cookers, but also the history, which I find to be fascinating. Is your paw stuck, Trouble? Yeah, let me help you with that. There you go. Okay. Um, but I mean, even so, as I said, my modern day lodge cooks just fine. So I mean, there are other reasons, I guess, to love different brands of cast iron. But as far as cooking goes, really, you can't go wrong. I've cooked in cheap Asian cast iron, and it's worked just fine. I'm lucky enough to own a Finex, for instance, and a Stargazer, and they are great for cooking. And there are little differences, yes. I mean, the Finex, besides its smooth surface, is so incredibly heavy. It's so much thicker and heavier than a large cast iron pan. And for that reason, okay, excuse me one second. Trouble. Okay, you are demanding attention, aren't you? Here we go. Anyway, what was I saying? The Finex is just so much thicker and heavier than Lodge. I feel that it probably uh, holds its heat better. So the Finex is definitely the one that I go for first if I want to sear a steak, for instance. On the other hand, a Lodge cast iron pan will sear a steak, give you about the best steak in cast iron that you can possibly have. So I mean, I've said this before, the difference between Lodge and Finex is like the difference between, say, excellent with Lodge and outstanding with Finex. And you're really not going to have any real complaints if you cook with either one. I had trouble. Uh, okay, you get down. Yes, he has, unfortunately. The reason, and I know the reason why, besides the fact that I've been spoiling him in Mobley, but also, he's been cooped up in here since the fall. I have not let the cats out since they moved in here yet. And it's been 4 months, and now, in addition, we're in the winter, and they've built up some winter fat too. And it's for that reason that I've promised Trouble. Yeah, I promised a cat, but I've made a promise to myself that come March, maybe mid March or so, when we're getting into spring and we're finally starting to get into some warmer weather again, I'm going to make them a cat door and I'm going to start letting them go out when they want. Because, well, number one, I'm by myself. I can't ask these two cats to live in solitude with just me in this house for the rest of their lives. That wouldn't be fair to them. Also, they need to get out, they need to have things to do. So, I mean, when they got out last year and became outdoor cats, they loved it. So, I will give them the opportunity come this spring, and I promise everybody that for them to get out and get some exercise and lose some weight and generally, well, enjoy themselves because this is a nice neighborhood. The traffic in this neighborhood, there isn't really a lot of traffic. I mean, there's always that risk, yes, but hey, like I said, I lived in the hood last year, and both Trouble and Mobley went out all the time, and they didn't have any trouble at all like that. So obviously, they have enough sense, at least, that I feel there should not be a problem. If anything, probably the worst thing that could happen to them out here, and yeah, there is that risk of them getting attacked by, like, say, a snake or something. So, but what can I do? Okay. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, if you want your cats to live a long life, you need to keep them inside. Yeah, there is that risk. On the other hand, of course, as you can see, Trouble's getting big. And like I said already, I don't think he deserves to have to be in solitude his entire life. Okay. Meanwhile, is there any cure for cast ironitis? Hmm. Having a stroke, being confined to a wheelchair for the rest of my life? Well, that's too sad and that I don't even want to talk about that. I can't think of one because I mean, if it gets to the point where eventually I become Hopefully never, but there is a possibility I could end up developing severe arthritis or worse and end up not being able to use my cast iron. Well, it would be a sad day, but well, obviously would mean that that time would come. Hopefully never. I mean, if I can at least get maybe another 20 years or so out of this hobby, I'll certainly be happy with that. I guess old age is the only cure I can think of for cast ironitis because um, I am so grateful, maybe more than anything else, that I learned how to cook. And and I can't really say anything more than that because anybody who knows how to cook, even just a little bit, you know what I'm talking about. Before I learned how to cook, and like I said, I can date this pretty much before the year 2010, I did not know how to cook. After the year 2010, I started learning how to cook. But before that point, what can I say? It's like we had a freezer full of Walmart burritos, Walmart pot pies, Walmart microwave uh, pizzas, and of course ramen noodles. So, yeah, I am so grateful for learning how to cook because it's really giving me the chance to expand my palate and try new things. I love trying new things. I've said this before. I love trying new foods. I've discovered so many great things, wonderful foods, and being able to cook means I've had the chance to try making them myself. Sometimes I've been successful, sometimes I've been less than successful. But I mean, what can I say? It's like only last year I discovered Saganaki flaming cheese. If you don't know what Saganaki cheese is, look it up and you'll probably want some because it is a certain kind of Mediterranean cheese. Even though it sounds Japanese, it's actually Mediterranean. It's a type, so that means it's like a goat cheese and it's kind of sour. But what you do, of course, is of course, you season it and you fry the cheese in a cast iron pan, and then you flambe it with your brandy. Poof, and then after that, you also drizzle it with lemon juice. And yeah, what you've got is cheese heaven on a plate. And if I did not know how to cook, I never would have discovered that. If I really did nothing but eat it at McDonald's and Popeyes and Domino's Pizza, I never would have discovered Italian Neapolitan margherita pizza. I love a margherita pizza, even though it's so much different from the pizzas that we have today. Or um, Brazilian street foods, coxinha, for instance, those chicken croquettes. I love those things. And I've said enough times I've fallen in love with Vietnamese pho, for instance, the best noodle soup in the world. I'm drooling over all this, for instance. None of which I would have discovered if I hadn't learned how to cook and started trying new things. So, what can I say? I like to encourage people. Trouble, come on, Trouble. Hold on one second now. Now he's going after Mowgli. Trouble. Mowgli, come here. Trouble. Excuse me one second. All right, I'll be very quick, I promise. Hi, Mowgli. Yeah, Trouble had the line, had the spotlight. Let's do a quick spotlight for a moment, shall we? Okay, here. Hey, Mowgli. Anyway, what was I saying? So, I mean, if anything else, I guess I would say don't be afraid to try new things. I mean, I'm sure that's something you probably heard many times before. And even if you do that a few times, by Mobley, you won't regret it. So, okay. Oh, wow. We're getting into that time, aren't we? And here I am. I've just pretty much been rambling on and on. I guess I should do at least one more cast iron question before we call it an evening. So imagine you've named him other than Trouble. I didn't name him Trouble. In fact, my former roommate did. So, but she named him very appropriately. I love the feeling of cooking something new successfully. Yeah, that is another nice thing, isn't it? And yet again, this is another thing I love about cooking cast iron and this hobby in particular. The vast majority of the dishes we see cooked in cast iron and on Facebook groups and the like are people doing typical everyday home cooking. stuff for family, stuff for friends, stuff maybe for occasional big instances like birthdays and Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff. But most of what we see in cast iron is good old home cooking, and it's great, and I love it. I am no chef. I haven't yet to really try so many of those fancy chef dishes that require days and days worth of prep work. On the other hand, I love doing simple recipes in my cast iron. Excuse me. Now the two are definitely starting to fight for a moment. You two, come on, break it up. I think I'm gonna have to give them some tweets soon. Okay, best way to re-season your pans without stripping. There we go. Okay, well, the best way to do that is just to use them. That's really the best I could say. Especially since I moved here, I've been doing my best to work through my collection and refresh as many of these pans as I can, because I've got some pans that unfortunately have been sitting here long enough that the regrettably the seasoning is starting to become a little bit rancid, unfortunately, and they're picking up coatings of dust on the inside, regrettably. Here, for instance, is my BSR handwritten number 5, which means I'm going to have to break this one out and use it, because once you use it, let me break this out right now. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Wanted to hang that up. Once you use it, then it becomes a different story. Here is my Lodge Made in America pan from 2018, for instance, which I just used earlier today, in fact. And there we go, nice and black and shiny, and it's something that I'm proud of. Now, as to how I do it, that's pretty simple. I use it. Number one, I just give it a good I just give it a good rinse and a quick scrub with the chainmail scrubber. Then I cook in it something like, say, chicken or burgers or steak or what have you. At which point, then after that, you scrub off the grease, and then I've gotten into the habit of putting it on my gas burner for a few minutes over a very low heat, and at which point then it becomes blazing hot. And then after a few minutes, while it's still hot, I take a cheap cloth, dab it in Crisco, and rub it on the pan while it's still hot. In fact, sometimes it even smokes when I do that. And then I give it a good coating, top and bottom, not a thick coating, just a thin coating, and let it cool off. And here's the result. We've got a nice black Lodge cast iron skillet. So, and that's really no difficult at all. The best way to keep your pans fresh and seasoned is to use them. That's about the best advice I can give there. So, a plaque could say, if cats could talk, they wouldn't. Yes, yeah, you called that one, definitely. I call my cat Crackhead. I don't blame you. Okay. Sometimes you can touch it up on the stove top. Yes, exactly. Can we see that lid? You said it was from England, mid 1800s. Oh, I know which lid you're talking about. It's right here, in fact. Look at this. This one's got some dust on it as well. I'm going to have to freshen this up. I believe somebody suggested making a spiderweb cornbread in this. That's not a bad plan. But here it is. This is the new idea. Yeah, NUYDEA, new idea lid, from which, as it turned out, is actually from the later 1800s, and it's made in England. And I was shocked to learn that when I looked up the history of this thing. The very first time I saw a photo of this and its accompanying skillet, I do not have the skillet, I only have the lid. The very first time I thought, once again, I thought this was from the Art Deco movement, because it looks like it. It has the angle design that really makes you think, especially with the skillet. It makes you think of Art Deco. So this thing was definitely decades ahead of its time, especially since it doesn't even really have a gate mark on the inside. And so this is a really nice lid, and I'm actually quite happy to own it. I was lucky enough to score this, in fact, at that very same antique center, the Owego Antique Center. And I think I paid $35 for the lid. And I paid that much because I knew what it was. And I can only hope one of these days I manage to score a skillet or a Dutch oven that fits this. Yeah, I've definitely got to make some spider web cornbread in this. No question about that. Okay, but yeah. So I mean, this happens to be, even though $35 is usually more than I would pay for a piece of cast iron. I think it was worth it in this case for the hope that maybe one of these days I'll be able to find a piece that matches it. So, and yeah, I have to freshen that one up too. Okay, yes, saganaki is usually an appetizer at a Greek restaurant, and I don't blame it, and I don't blame them at all. It's a good reason to go there. Love the spider corn cake. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I'm gonna have to put that on my short list. Oh, once I get back from my trip to Massachusetts in the next couple of days, I definitely have things to do. Number one, as I promised, I do in fact have a video in the making that I definitely have to get down to finishing that has more to do with identifying vintage cast iron. And as always, I hope folks like it. And then I really want to get down to some more cooking and some spider cornbread. Actually, that doesn't sound like a bad plan. I keep seeing these viral videos and sending copies of them to myself saying, I want to make this. And hopefully I'll get down to it. So, which again, easy recipes as opposed to fancy stuff. My family loves the chili that is basically the recipe. Well, oh, I'm glad you like it. Um, which chili are you talking about? I made a chili a couple of weeks ago, but about a year ago, I fell in love with um, Cincinnati chili. That was it. Yeah, and in fact, there we go. Trying new things. That was exactly it. I took a trip to Cincinnati, made sure to eat local, and bam, Cincinnati chili. And I tried it and I fell in love with it. And that's what led, in fact, to doing another thing, local thing from New York, Rochester garbage plates. Okay, I think we're getting into that point here. I mean, it is actually, I can't believe I've just been walking around and talking here for the last hour and a half. And I can only hope, though, if nothing else has been entertaining enough, that I can't believe we've got 115 people still here. So thank you very much, everybody. But yeah, this is, in fact, I'll say this again. I think I would like to try doing this the first Wednesday of every month. That way, we can make this more of a regular thing, and people will know what to expect when they show up here. And it'll give me an idea of what to do. Finding content for this channel, that's always something. So doing one of these a month, that doesn't sound like a bad plan. It's easy to do too. So that's something to look forward to. And yeah, exactly. But yeah, I will. Okay, I am going to be doing this on a regular basis then. But and only 60. Well, okay. But yes, I can only, yeah, love the monthly talking about cast iron. Yeah, why not? I know I follow a guy called Jeff Holiday, and at the end of every month he has what he calls the Wingnut Roundup. He really follows crazy conspiracy theorists on YouTube, and he sums them up at the end of the month. I could do something like that at the beginning of the month, except of course, again, it would have more to do with cast iron. And besides, next month is February, which means, of course, we're getting close to Valentine's Day. And yeah, I think I even reposted a TikTok video on my Facebook reminding folks that we're getting into Valentine's cast iron. Heart-shaped cast iron pans. They are showing up in the stores now. And if you want one, now is the time to get one. What am I looking for? Oh, yeah. Voila. So, yes, we are getting into that time of year, folks, and you'll probably be seeing these at Walmart as well. I have no doubt whatsoever. This is, in fact, was a Walmart cookie skillet obviously, as you can see, in the shape of a heart. So it's something to keep an eye out for. And then, of course, we've got those enameled ones, and I have one of them, and I like it too because of the shape. And you know what I've done with that heart shaped pan? I've used it as a cake pan, and I've made cakes in it. So there's an idea. Not only is it a Dutch oven, it's a cake pan. So keep that in mind. Okay, having said all that, yeah, RT Scott, good night from Iowa. Stay safe. Exactly. Best Gary Boy, the best way to reseason your pans without stripping is to simply leave your clothes on. Yeah, I will not disagree with that. And believe me, if I took my clothes off, the number of viewers here, which is currently down to 107, would drop to zero very quickly. So we'll leave it at that at this point. Yeah, crazy times. Pretty much, they think anything made of cast iron is gold. So, and smoking gun X. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it. I do my best to be entertaining because it's a lot of fun. And I said this every week because I mean it every week. It's a lot of fun doing these videos, and I like doing them. And it really is refreshing. It's stress relief. Oh, the next couple of days going to be very stressful. So this is definitely some good stress relief, and thank you for that. And the reason why there's so much fun is because of you folks. You folks being here and commenting and being snarky and seeing Trouble and Mobley and all this cast iron and me too. Thank you. I can only thank you so much for showing up, and I will keep trying to do my best to try to keep doing this for you because, as I said, I enjoy it, and I hope you do too. So, thank you so much once again for everybody. We will get together again this time next week. So, we'll see you all next Wednesday.